Hey, welcome to the Johnny King live show. It's live because we're taping it right now, but it's not live if you're listening to this, so it doesn't make sense. But I'm here with my man, Brent Ellis, and we met through him doing some work at my place here. We're just sitting here in my living room / kitchen, and really cool artist with what he does, and we'll chat more about how he got into that area. But welcome to my podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's really cool. And so I invited him just to come over, and we got into some good conversations when he was doing some work for me, some woodworking upstairs in some of my bedrooms. And the more we started talking about his story, I was like, holy moly, you've been through some tough life things. And given that right now I'm working with so many men here in Denver through trauma, through depression, through maybe not even heavy things like that, other than just life isn't working for them or they're stuck in certain areas. A lot of times it boils down to, us not necessarily processing things that have gone on in our lives. And then we create maybe coping mechanisms that don't serve us in the long run. So would love to kind of just jump into your story, and
Sure.
I'll kind of maybe pepper you with some questions as we go along, but yeah.
Feel free.
Yeah. So where would you like to kind of jump into your story?
I think maybe if we just give a high level summary, and then I can kind of just jump into the meat of things. Perfect. If you want.
Yeah, perfect.
Like Johnny said, my wife and I started this small little business. It's like a woodworking business, and we've been doing it for about a year. And I kind of stumbled upon this passion of mine. If you were to ask me a couple years ago if I loved woodworking, I would have been like, I have no idea. I took a shop class, in high school.
I did too. Well, junior high, and I loved it.
Really?
It. Yeah.
Oh man, it's cool, but I just never continued with it. Right. It's real hands-on, which I love, and we'll get into a little bit more of the story, but I found this passion of mine for this woodworking through kind of walking through grief. And they say that one of the best ways through grief is actually creating stuff, just to have this expression of kind of what's going on inside and being able to have an outlet, and it's just a good way to process. So my wife and I, we ended up losing our first son back in 2018, and we can jump into a little bit more of that story and journey. There's a lot in there. But I would say because of all that, we started this small little business as sort of an honor to our son. We named it the Anders Collective, and Anders is his middle name. Bennett is his first name. And it's sort of, for us, this emotional tie to our business. It's just a way for us to leave behind this, cool legacy and be able to share our story with a lot of people who want to listen. We're not going to force it on anybody, but if you dig and kind of pry, you can ask some questions and you'll get into some real material there.
That's pretty cool. And what were you doing though before your business?
Man, I was in security software sales, so this technology world, and I wouldn't say it was the best fit for me. I did it for like 8 years, and it was a lot of hustle. Yeah. Just field sales. So you're traveling. I had 12 states I was covering, and I was traveling all over the place, whining and dining people to after hours, and it just got old. So this is like such a shift for me. I mean, a lot happened in life, but then, to just have a slower pace, work with your hands, and have tangible results. Right. Like that is so gratifying. Yeah. Because you stare at a computer screen selling security software, and you're like, what did I just do today? Right. Like, how did I move the needle forward? Yeah. So with woodworking, it's just this, beautiful piece to see something transform and take shape.
Yeah, same with me. I felt like before I got into kind of being an entrepreneur and working for myself, I was working for a family business, but still feeling like I was selling widgets, Yeah. And little things that, sure, the gratification came through a lot of times my significance of like, oh yeah, my name's on the building, my name's on the product, because it's a family business. But beyond that, and that's the only reason really why I wanted to get into it, because I wanted to be part of something that was more meaningful. And now it sounds like you've created this business that has so much meaning, and yet still connected with this journey of working through grief, right?
Yeah, I'd say we're continuing that journey. You know, we're still in the thick of things.
That's cool.
And so it has been a beautiful way to continue that.
How long have you been married?
Let's see, just over 3 years.
Okay, so you guys were married for a couple of years and then got pregnant, and
yeah. I'll just jump right in. We were married for a couple of years, and you know, my wife surprised me earlier on in 2018, told us we were getting pregnant, and gonna have a child, and I was just elated. You know, I was overjoyed. Everything that comes with, you know, starting and raising, you know, children and a family, and so you have all these hopes and dreams and expectations for how things should go, and you know, everything was great. We were having such a good time. We're over the moon. Until about week 20. Week 20 is sort of a really big point in the pregnancy journey, where you get to find out the gender on the ultrasound. You can see your baby moving and sort of know what you're looking at. You know, because they do one at like 10 weeks and you really have no idea, like, what is this? Like, what am I looking at? And you point everything out.
Right. It's like a peanut.
Yeah. And so really that was sort of when our world changed. That was a really big, heavy milestone in our lives. So we walked into that meeting, or that ultrasound, and we had no idea what to expect. We were just like on cloud 9, and you know, the ultrasound tech really wasn't saying a lot, but she was like printing all these pictures, and we're like, we don't know what to expect. We've never done this.
Never done it,
And we thought everything was great until, you know, we got moved to the doctor, like a waiting room, and the doctor came in, and the first words out of her mouth were like, "I'm very concerned for your baby." And my wife and I were like shell shocked. We had like no idea what was going on. And, you know, she said that she's going to refer us to a specialist to get more information, but she's really concerned for the life of our baby. And we're like, we had no idea what was going on. And without any information, your mind just plays all these scenarios.
Talk about a buzzkill.
Yeah. I mean, we were just like sobbing and didn't even know what questions to ask. And so we kind of were whisked out of the building, down the fire escape, because we didn't want to go through the waiting room where all these pregnant mothers are. People are all excited and have normal pregnancies. And so we were kind of ushered down that way, and we didn't sleep a wink that next night or that night. And we went early the next morning to the perinatal specialist, where they did sort of a deep dive ultrasound. And really knew what they were looking for. And that was a really hard moment. There was this dark room. Again, we were just like on pins and needles. It was super quiet. I mean, you could like hear your heartbeat in your ears, just this anticipation of like, tell me what's going on. Like, is my baby gonna be okay? What's the outcome gonna look like? And the ultrasound tech, it wasn't the doctor, she said, "Do you want me to point out things as I see them?" And we're like, gosh, you know, we're a little hesitant. We're like, yeah, we'd like to know.
Rather know than not, I guess.
And like, she kind of went over one thing after another, like, oh, he's got extra fluid in his brain. He's got, you know, clenched hands that are turned in. He's got, you know, there's some pieces of his heart that aren't quite normal, and we need to do some.
They can see all that?
They can,
Just from an ultrasound?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's weird. They can see like some of the blood flow, like they can kind of shift the lens or whatever of the machine and see where blood's flowing, where it's not. And anyway, like one thing after another was going wrong. You know, they're saying is wrong with our son. And there's something in me that like welled up, and like I just wanted to scream and just tell my son, like, yeah, that may be true, but like, I love you. Like, you're loved. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you're my son. You know? And so it was like this really crushing news that we were getting at week 20. And from there, you know, there's like 13 more weeks of just back-to-back meetings with like the specialist, and we went to the children's hospital to look at his heart more. And really what it came down to is they diagnosed him with trisomy 13, which is really an extra copy of the 13th chromosome, which kind of causes a whole bunch of, things to go wrong. And so this is a really hard journey for my wife and I, where, we're visiting with like the NICU and trying to talk through like hospice, how long our baby would make it. And it's a terminal diagnosis. But we didn't know how long, if he would make it to full term, if he would be born still.
That's what my question was. Was there any concern that you wouldn't even get through the full term?
Yeah. Sure. It was literally like a day-to-day journey. Wow. It's like his heart could stop beating tomorrow or today or 3 days after he's born. But usually they said, babies with this condition really don't make it too far after birth. Birth is pretty challenging for them. Like either the lungs or the heart, have a hard time outside of the womb. And so, it was really, really tricky because my wife and I were sort of forced into this world of making these unbelievably hard decisions around our child. It's like, okay, if he is born, do we want to just hook him up to all these machines? And like, that's sort of painful and foreign and not very comforting to him. But if he's going to last a while, do we do that? Or if you can't feed, do we want to just make him comfortable? Like, there's just sort of these heartbreaking scenarios we had to wrestle with.
No doubt. And not to mention that you're still in a relatively, early part of your marriage. You've only been together for a couple of years.
Yeah.
It's like some heavy stuff going on.
Yeah. And it changed things for sure. And I can definitely talk about our relationship because it did change. And I think, together we have changed, our marriage has changed, but also individually we've grown quite a bit. I don't think you can walk through this much pain and not be changed.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It does change you, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So really, like, each moment of this journey was a gift. I think it gave us a perspective that we wouldn't otherwise have. And, every night, like, we would try and read to him and, I'd sing to him, and the best experience I had is like getting, watching him kick and respond to my voice. And, we were praying with him and just trying to pray for a miracle, just begging God for a miracle. And just really just trying to enjoy being a family. We're still a family. We'd go out and people were like, oh, it's so exciting. Is this your first? And little did they know, like, this, we're just carrying around this really heavy news. So it was this dichotomy of really holding life and death all in the same, same thing with like joy. We're being, he's with us. And this is so amazing. And then there's the sorrow piece of like, man, what's going to happen? This excitement and bitter tears, all in the same breath. Holding this news that the doctor's giving us versus believing in the miracle and praying for that. So there's this weird balance.
Well, and it takes, I feel like, the things that we normally experience in this human experience between the joys of life and the sorrows of perceived death, and you're consolidating it into like 9 months, if that, and it's just like, talk about a massive flow of emotions. And and then you're also supposed to be, working, keeping food on the table, having a relationship with your wife, vice versa, having a relationship with your friends and family and stuff like that. Did you go about telling your family?
Oh yeah, we shared it with a lot of people, and that was another huge gift to us. Is so many people walked this journey with us and really carried our sorrow and just sat with us. And a lot of people didn't try and fix or dismiss our pain, like, oh, everything happens for a reason. It's like, oh great, I guess I shouldn't be feeling this way. It's like they didn't, it was really a gift.
Well, and how do you deal with, because I totally resonate. If I were in your shoes, I'd be thinking about wanting to kind of scream the same things at my son when they start like labeling, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And part of you being like, none of that really matters. Those labels don't matter just because you're loved. Right? Which is so much of our human experience too, because we're all adults and yet we all have put on labels on ourselves. And so much of it is like, no, you're still loved.
Yeah.
No matter what, and you have to shed those limiting beliefs. But how did you deal with telling other people? But to me, it's like, if I tell other people, then it's almost like then I get all this collective energy people holding to this fact that the baby, you're praying for a miracle, and yet you're also telling all these people it's not going to happen because this is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's a dichotomy that's rough for me in my head to.
I know. It was so weird.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, believing that something extraordinary can happen.
Yeah.
And yet believing and planning, like we also in tandem were planning a funeral. Yeah. Like we couldn't just wait. We had to make decisions.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Here and now.
Yeah.
About him passing and what we're gonna do, and so that was really hard. But yeah, I think there is something really cool. There's a cool lesson in there of like just knowing that we're loved, and that all these labels, all these things that are wrong, like at the end of the day, don't matter. Like he's my son, and regardless of how he lives up to my dreams or expectations, I love him. Yeah, none of that matters. Yeah. So that was really, really unique. I don't know, just perspective to have.
Yeah. When you said something else that made me, just having never been through that, I don't have any children, but to realize again how much of certainly it's a traumatic event for mom to go through in terms of birthing a child. But at least for me, I don't always think about regularly that the child is also going through a pretty stressful, traumatic event. We don't remember it, but we all have gone through it, and it is taxing on the heart and the lungs and a baby's life, So it's, just interesting to think that through. It's like, well, will it actually make it through, those first couple of hours, or through the labor, through the birth itself, or,
It really was a moment by moment. And we had some freakouts where we didn't feel him kicking or moving for a while. We'd like go into the hospital and try and listen for his heartbeat. And it's just not your typical pregnancy journey.
No.
A lot of pins and needles, a lot of fear. And also peace too, just trying to be okay with, hey, this is what it is. We are not in control. Like there's no amount of money or influence I can have with the doctors to make this thing go away.
Yeah, right.
Like it's bigger than us.
Yeah.
And and we just, we wanted to just honor his life and give him a chance, and I'm so glad we did, because we got so much in return. Like I'm totally changed. Like it was such a blessing to us in a lot of ways. But eventually at week 33, his heart did stop. After a couple of different scares, we went in and he was still okay, but Louisa knew something. It was getting kind of close. I think he had started slowing down his movement, and there was some fluid buildup around his heart. And his heart did end up stopping. And we went to the hospital, and gosh, that was like the hardest, but like the most beautiful and joyful day of my life. Like, cause there's this anticipation of like, I get to meet my son. Like, who is this little person? Like that has stolen my heart, that we've given so much affection and time and energy, and just trying to love on, and this little person. And it was like, it felt like just this holy moment, really. Like the world stood still in a lot of ways, and it was like so quiet. It was so weird, because like you're hoping and wanting, and like you see it in all these movies and things of like the baby coming out and crying, and it was like the quietest moment, and it's like he's here, and we got to hold him, and like that was so precious.
But he already passed.
And he had already passed. They think about like 3 days prior to us going in and finding out his heart wasn't beating anymore. And it was really, I don't know, we just tried to cherish that time as much as we could. And it was really beautiful and hard. We had friends and family that were there, and we got a lot of beautiful pictures that we can share with our new son that we just welcomed into the world, and tell him about this story and his brother, and that was really, but the hardest part was really saying our final goodbyes.
sure.
Like just
that's exactly where my mind went to. Like,
what do you say?
But when do you have to give it up?
Yeah. And he had already deteriorated a little bit since he had been passed away, so we don't really get as much time as we wanted to. But really just, trying to say our goodbyes, and then like the hardest part was just watching him like wheel him out of the room in a cart, and just knowing you're never going to see him again.
Yeah.
You're never going to get to hold him again.
Yeah.
All these dreams and hopes of, bike riding together and watching him take his first steps,
For
and
sure.
are just poof, gone.
Yeah.
Just so different.
Yeah.
So that was really, really hard. And then to compound that, after our stay in hospital, we're going home, and we go out a back way, and we're getting in the car, and we see all these other moms and dads with their babies getting in their car. They're all happy, and there's smiles all around, and they're loading their their newborns up and in their cars, and we're going home with empty arms.
Yeah.
We have nothing.
Yeah.
And on the when we got home, like we just have this empty crib and an empty car seat, and it's quiet in our house, and my wife's milk is starting to come in to try and support life, so her body thinks like, hey, I want to support this baby I just birthed, and we have nothing. It's just like, how do you process all of that?
Yeah. Empty arms, but full heart in different ways,
Yeah. Yeah, it was really interesting. I think one of the most memorable pieces for me, just my faith, kind of speaking to that in specific, like we woke up and we were just worshiping the next morning, and he wasn't with us. We were in the hospital, and we already said our goodbyes, and I don't know, that just did a lot for my heart. We left the hospital that afternoon, and I was like, man, we have nothing with us, but my heart feels full, if that makes sense. So there was this interesting piece that we had. It's like, well, we did our part.
Yeah.
We were faithful. We made a lot of good decisions around our baby. We gave him a chance. We thought through every possible scenario, trying to take care of him, make sure he's comfortable after he's born, planning a funeral for him, making sure he's loved, and kind of sharing his story. So I think I don't have any regrets about like, man, I wish we would have done X, Y, and Z.
Well, and I think the challenge becomes in all of our lives the comparison game. Of, like you said, comparing yourself with those that were walking home with their newborn,
Oh man.
and starting the next chapter. But like if you just looked at the things that you guys took from this as the positive, as your glass is half full, right?
Yeah.
How could you have ever wished anything different from that experience, So that's the hard part though, is that
how do you have that perspective?
Amidst the fire, so to speak, that's the hard thing to do when you're in that moment and you're looking at everything else and not coveting what other people have,
That was really hard, especially afterward. You'd go out and see, and you'd have all these painful reminders. The holidays were coming, because this was in September, and everyone's getting ready for Thanksgiving and Christmas and stuff. It's like every milestone was just like painful. Like, wow, everyone gets to celebrate and be happy with their family. And
what I also wonder too, I think the fear then too is just thinking about, okay, when do we get back on the horse? When do we attempt, and can we have children again? You have to have that conversation. Was there anything? I just cannot even imagine what women feel, especially going through that. It's hard for a father. And I know other people that have gone through a similar experience to you. And then you start to wonder, like, okay, I'd like to do this again, but do we have what it takes?
Can we go through this pain?
Can we go through it potentially again?
Happens.
And that's
there's a lot of wrestling there. There's such an emotional journey. Especially with my wife, Louisa. She had such a different connection to him. She gets to carry him and feel him every day, like moving, it did look different than my experience with him.
For sure.
And yeah, to try and process, like, man, do I want to put my body through this again? And emotional, questions of, is this going to work out? Is it not?
Yeah.
And we did get tested. It was sort of a fluke thing. It's like a 1 in, I think, 30,000 chance that something like this would happen. It's just kind of a fluke deal.
Yeah.
So we did. We jumped back on the bandwagon and wanted a family, and just.
It just takes a ton of courage, though.
Yeah.
I give you guys major props, because I would do the same thing, because that's important to me too, a future family. But like, still, that takes. Yeah. No pun intended. It takes balls.
Yeah, I mean, it did. Yeah.
It's courageous
to just kind of step up to the plate again, knowing we could go through the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a beautiful story. But now, we just welcomed our second son into the world. His name's Micah, and he was born a couple months ago. So we're so thrilled about him and this new life that we have. And almost, it's sort of like a first experience in a lot of ways of bringing a baby home and hearing our house with a baby in it. And we get to decorate the nursery finally and actually have a baby shower this time around.
Yeah. Maybe it makes you cherish it even more.
It does, it did. I think going through this grief and with all this sorrow and stuff, it did give us a perspective that we wouldn't have otherwise. And I think the other piece to it is I got to see a beautiful side of my wife that I would have never seen if we hadn't gone through this difficult season.
No doubt.
And so it's weird to even say that I can look back on this experience and say, like, in some ways I'm grateful. Like, I would never sign up for this. I wouldn't wish this upon anybody. But I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like, just those precious moments, the memory, how I've been changed. Because I think, at the beginning, Louisa and I really did have a choice. Because of what we were facing, I think we could either become bitter and sort of medicate or run away from this hard thing. That's a reality. Or we can kind of press in and step into the pain and allow ourselves to feel it and really share it with other people. And that turned out to be life-saving for me. My wife is, she would choose to do it with a lot of people. My MO is to isolate, kind of check out, distance myself. And, because we're together, we kind of chose to invite people in, and that saved me.
Really?
Serious.
Let's talk about that, because I think that that's stereotypically masculine versus feminine, or man versus woman, which is like guys like to isolate and shut down, or and some women do too. That's why I say it's more of the masculine expression of the masculine likes to put his blinders on and minimize the problem so can figure out the solution to it, and tunnel vision and everything else, where the feminine is all about let's share this, let's express it, let's talk about it, let's fill up and feel and experience all the different various emotions,
Yeah.
But your natural instinct was to shut down and to kind of put your head in the sand, or
to run, to don't talk about it, carry it on my own.
Which was actually, though, the counterintuitively, the thing that you needed most was what her instinct was, which was to ask for help and invite people in.
And honestly, they saved us. They dropped off meal after meal. They gave us cards, notes, texts. They really carried us for months. And again, like I said earlier, they weren't trying to dismiss all this stuff and have the right phrase and try and make it all right and neat and pretty. They're just like, this sucks, and we're with you. And we want to talk about Bennett. We don't want to just shy away from this ugly, hard thing in your life. And that was really crucial to the healing process, I think.
Which was what, you just talking about it, vocalizing it, expressing what you're
sharing what we're going through. Having other people believe when we're like, there's no hope. There's no, what, this sucks. Like, I want to die. I can't, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is too painful. Like, there was days where I'm like, I don't want to live anymore. I can't take this. Especially after he had passed, we're like, gosh, what do we have to live for, It's just hard to see that when you're by yourself. You just have one perspective when other people can say like, whoa, hold on. Like,
when you're in the thick of it.
You got your blinders on for sure. And going back to Louisa and I's relationship, it was kind of scary because the doctor actually gave some statistics around how marriages don't work, like because of issues like this infant loss. I mean, people just tend to just do this. And I don't know what it was. I would love to say like, oh yeah, I had the strategy and, the foresight to, I didn't. I don't know why, but we really leaned into one another and like you were saying, just processed together. And it really, this whole thing did bring us closer together and really did set even deeper roots for our marriage. Sharing one another's pain and like getting to know the other person's heart on such a depth. What they're experiencing. And I mean, it's just unique. It isolates you. It can isolate you from everyone else, but it's like, oh, I have this other person who gets me exactly. They know what I'm going through. You can share that. I don't know. That was a gift.
I think it's a total gift, and I think it's also a gift for Micah. Micah? Say so?
Bennett is our firstborn. Micah is our second. So
a huge value add to Micah as he grows, and you share this with him because he will be your age one day, having children potentially, and will go through just his own trials and tribulations that you do in this human experience, and to be like, you know what? I mean, a lot of times we be like, well, if mom and dad can do it, or they went through something far worse, then that just allows me to have a sense of anchoring to the like, if they did it, I can do it too, and it can allow him to be even stronger emotionally and in his faith, I think, as he grows older, because he knows the story, right?
He's got someone that's sort of gone the hard path before him.
Which I think is a value of why you would share it with him versus keeping it hush hush and pretending like it hadn't happened, which I know I've also heard of other stories of friends who like the losses happen and then people act like it didn't happen. It's like the elephant in the room.
That's been interesting. This is a lot to put on somebody, but it comes up so much. Oh, is this your first son? When they look at our second born, and it's like, well, no, and there's a story there. People are like, oh, what? And so we give people a 50,000-foot view, and it's been interesting to see what kind of connections have come up. It's like, you know what? I lost a son, or I had an abortion, and whatever, and I didn't tell anybody, and it's been an interesting connecting point. I think our journey and our story has really allowed us to connect to certain people in a completely different way than if we didn't go through it. So again, there's sort of this hindsight looking at it with a different lens of like, not, oh, poor us, like look what it's like, man, we get to connect with and share other people's stories and journeys, and can help in a way that we just couldn't if we didn't go through it.
Totally. Well, I feel like some people too would potentially not want to bring it up, like for you and Lisa, just because you don't want to make other people uncomfortable. You don't want to relive it. You don't, like, maybe you get tired of like thinking about it, you're wanting to move on, but then by saying, oh yeah, this is our firstborn, but in your head you're like, no, it's actually not. But then you feel like you're disrespecting Bennett, right? So that takes courage too, to actually say, no, it's not, and then to be able to share that. But it actually brings, so much, vulnerability is just that power of connecting, of allowing you to connect with other people, because then they actually open up about their story, and it breeds more and more connection and love and empathy and everything else versus, just putting it underneath the rug, so to speak.
Totally. I think what we try and do is just give people a 50,000-foot view, and if they want to ask more questions, we're an open book. We're happy to share more, but we don't want to, like, again, push it on people.
Totally.
But it is a way to honor his life. It's like, hey, his life mattered, and he was here, and we got to hold him and spend time with him, and So there's this piece that we get to carry on.
Yeah. How was going through the second pregnancy and the dealing with that, and it's like PTSD almost, right? And
Totally.
not freaking out, you know, because we talked about it a little bit. I think maybe we did, but you know, I'm hiking Long's Peak, and I saw my buddy fall to his death, and then me having to deal with doing other 14ers and hiking and hearing people slip and like freaking out and realizing like I have to work through my own. We don't all, but a lot of us do have those traumatic instances where if something like that happens, then how do you make sure that you don't keep magnifying that experience, even though this is a completely different experience?
Yeah.
You know? So how do you
reliving that nightmare?
Yeah.
I think a couple things. We got some great counsel through a counselor. Did some EMDR because they say that infant loss is a unique kind of grief, and it's a grief that you never get over. But we've read a lot of books and stuff, and they say that's true, but the sting each year gets maybe a little bit less. Yeah. So going through this new pregnancy, there was a lot of, it was still pretty fresh. We had 2 kids under 12 months, which is a lot. Yeah. And so, there was a lot of freakouts, and we were just trying, again, we've learned like through Bennett's life and passing, we're just not in control. There's only so much we can do, and at the end of the day, you just say, you know what? We're being faithful to doing as much as we can. And there's a lot out of our control. So I think that gave us a lot of peace, you know.
And probably one of the bigger blessings, I would say, maybe to come out of it for you guys, because I see that in all the work that I've done over the last decade with people, that is their greatest addiction, is control. And the sooner you let go of it, which is the hardest thing to do, like we were talking about with Airbnb being my house or renting out my car, so like it just requires you to let go, you know. And the sooner you can do that, the more you can just, you know, put forth your energy into things that truly matter and that you can actually control, versus letting God do the rest. Yeah,
it totally frees you. Instead of just worrying. And I think through our second one, we're human. We had a lot of days where we were just anxious and over probably analyzing every little hiccup that happens in our new little guy, and like, well, what is that? Is that normal? Is it not normal? But I think we've learned some valuable lessons along the way that really helped us too. So it's a little bit of both. But
allows you guys to probably cherish every little moment.
It's funny. I tell my wife too, like, you would think we would have like such a beautiful perspective all the time, but I'm human. I get frustrated. He cries and I can't soothe, Micah, and I'm like, what do you need? You know? But I think that, again, there is this perspective that you do get in a depth that just comes with having traveled through grief and through loss, that I don't know if you could really get to that perspective without going through it. I think hearing other people's journeys gives you a little bit of a different lens, but kind of traveling that road, we are appreciative, and I think we're trying to enjoy every moment we have, because we just don't know. He's a healthy baby, but tomorrow could be totally different. We have no idea.
Cherishing the now while kind of relinquishing all control.
You
talked about you changed, Louisa changed, your wife. How have you changed as a result of this, going through this?
This is interesting. I told my employer what was going on through this diagnosis with our first son, and I got let go about a week before our son arrived. So this 8-year track with this one company, and I, just felt like left field. I'm like, you're kidding, this is the worst time in the world. So that happened, and really that job was pretty conducive to a little bit, I'll call it a weakness for me, is this people pleasing. Trying to keep up a facade, make sure that I'm presentable and I'm likable, and trying to present this different version of myself to the world. And when we went through this whole thing with our first son, Bennett, my give a crap meter just went like to almost zero.
Yeah.
I got let go and I'm like, I don't even care.
Yeah.
Like, I could care less. This is a job.
Yeah.
This is a joke.
Yeah.
Like, my son's gonna die.
Yeah.
Like, do you not know what's going on in the
Yeah.
world?
Yeah.
So like, there's this monumental shift
Yeah.
that happened for me to kind of shake loose some of this people pleasing and these identity pieces for me.
Yeah.
And it's kind of set me on a new course in a lot of ways through some of that, where, you know, with the weight of what we had going on and we were traveling through, it just normal things didn't matter as much.
Right.
I'm like, money, okay, like, it's money.
Right.
Like, is that all that
Right.
we're chasing? Is the status, the title, all of that stuff? It's like, it kind of reshifted your whole thinking and
changes your values, like doesn't change your values, but it changes like the barometer in which you value your values, you know, and things that you thought were important, like a house and cars and money, like you said, is like, it really is meaningless when it comes to love and life and that sort of thing, right?
Your faith. And I think so that was a big shift for me. And I knew I was like a, what do we call it, like a recovering people pleaser. But I think this really gave me a platform to stand on and almost a strength or an encouragement to say, okay, I don't have to show up how I did before. And traveling this road and leaning into pain, I am changed. I am a new person. And like, I want to let this change me in a good way. So I think that was a really, really big one for me. Besides the perspective, and really changed a lot of our friendships too. You know, when we started going through this, I mean, some friends, like, they just wanted to go have fun. And I'm like, that is not where I'm at right now. Like, we're wrestling with something. They just didn't know how to embrace the pain. And so you just sort of, I don't know, it sent us on a little bit of a different track than some of our friends, and just evaluating relationships and our time, like, how are we actually connecting with people? Is this a surface level connection that we really want to keep up? Or, and don't get me wrong, some of that's great. You know, that's connection for a lot of people, and time, it's not meaningless. But I think it just, again, the value, it put value on, I want to connect with people. I want to share this kind of stuff. So that changed a lot too. Through a lot of this.
I think that's super, super powerful to acknowledge that and to see, because to see that it could change you, like you said, to the disempowered way. I mean, that was a choice. It could not be water in there. That could be all vodka. You know, like you could go down that route.
Choice.
Like you said, you could lean in, and I think that support, like you said, both with your wife and, you know, certainly God and your friends and family, makes all the difference. Because I do feel like so many guys that I talk to who are really, really down in the dumps, they feel completely alone, completely isolated, and it only magnifies how horrible you feel. You know, and I feel that certainly by myself at times, in the quiet, you know, places of my own mind and my own home and stuff like that at times. But that's where you have to get into having the humility to reach out and say, I'm not doing so great, and I need some support from whomever, right? So
that's humbling.
For sure.
Really humbling.
And it's
That's
hard.
so hard to do. As a guy too, you're like, oh, I don't want to ask for help or show people that, hey, I'm just gonna break down. Like, I can't carry this whole thing. Keep a facade going. Gosh.
That's cool. Really cool that you have, you know, taken what you've gone through and turned it into meaningful, empowering, and positive change, you know?
It's so interesting. It's kind of like, there was another season in my life where I grew a lot, but it's one of those where you can't look at every day and be like, wow, I grew a ton yesterday. But you look at the whole thing, you're like, whoa, I was a completely different person. And these small little decisions, or just weathering the storm well, you know, a lot of it was out of my control. It was like helping my wife, helping the community. It wasn't all me. Really allowed me to be changed.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Little did you know that when you said "I do," that you were in for this.
No idea.
In for this journey, which is the, you know, the humbling and the adventurous part of life. You know, through the good and the bad, and the highs and the lows, right?
Yeah, life can be really hard.
Yeah. Well, and you also have this business now that's also kind of like another baby.
Yeah.
You know, you have to nurture it, you have to care for it, you have to spend time almost every single day
trying to figure it all out.
You know. So you let go the week before Bennett was born. You know, at what point did you actually start to birth this idea?
You know, again, it kind of, there's a bigger story there, but to summarize it, our friends and family, huge gift. All got together, and after Bennett had passed, and they pooled some funds together, and they sent my wife and I on a trip to Europe for like 14 days, which was so amazing. And it was, I mean, part of it we're like, this seems so foolish. Like, how are we supposed to enjoy anything? We're in the middle of like grief, but it was such a gift to just get a different scenery, different change of pace. Long story short, we went to France, and my wife saw these like breadboards that they had, these like vintage breadboards, and we came home and she's like, "Can you make one of these for me?" I was like, "I have no idea how to do it." Sure, I've got time. I'm not working.
I have no idea for sure.
I don't have a job. We got a lot of time on our hands.
Recovering yes man.
Yeah, people
I have no idea, but yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, I have no idea. Sure. And so, yeah, I tried it, made one, and all of her friends are like, "Wait, can I have one of those?" And I'm like, "Sure." And then I batched out a few more, and then it's sort of evolved into, you know, not just cutting boards and these breadboards, but little smaller pieces of furniture and some barn doors and some bigger and bigger projects. So it's been fun. You know, it's changing a lot, and we're still totally unsure about what direction to head. I mean, you go from making pretty good money to like starting a business. That's a hard swing financially.
Been there.
And so I think we're wrestling with some just big life questions about what the path forward looks like. Can we make it with this little woodworking business, which is a grind, but it's fun. And I love it. And I sort of stumbled upon this passion. And it's funny, like, after losing my job, like, I went back and looked at all these assessments and stuff. Like, I'm a big specialist. And I'm like a guy who loves to like deep dive into something, master a skill, and like with woodworking, it's amazing. There's like an endless amount to learn.
Of course.
You know, videos to watch, techniques to try.
So much so I was gonna say to your machines, so much that's dependent upon whatever tools you got.
Oh yeah.
You know, and then there's endless tools that you can buy.
Yeah, I think
not enough garage space.
Totally. I think I know my Christmas and birthday list for the rest of for the next 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Some cool tools.
Yeah. That's cool though. It's fun. And what a different modality, if you will, of going from, you know, what did you say, technology, security?
Yeah, security software
sales to work with your hands.
Yeah. A lot of pressure to, you know, diving into something. You know, and it's so reflective of this journey too. I keep going back to it, but it's a big milestone in our lives. But it is a big reflection. Like, it was this fast-paced world before, keeping up with friends, doing a lot of fun stuff, my job, and then, you know, we found out about our son and his diagnosis and losing him. Our world just got small. That's your world. You're not focused on like, oh man, let's talk about retirement. Let's talk about vacation, dreams and hopes and goals. It's like, how are we going to make it through today? And so I think your world gets small, and this woodworking thing is sort of that for me too. It's like, there's not a ton of other people around. I can focus on what I'm doing, you know, and watching something kind of slowly take shape, you know, as you work on it. And so there's this beautiful, I think, parallel to sort of the season that we're in too. Slower pace and simpler life. Yeah. It's
cool.
Yeah, it has been fun. I'm learning a lot.
Yeah. It's really, really cool. What else did you have on there that you were open to chatting about?
I think
Does that touch on a lot of the good points?
Yeah, it does.
Good.
You know, I think the other thing that I've learned as we walk through this grief journey or this painful journey of loss, there's some cool analogies that we heard. One of like the shipwreck and kind of losing this comfortable vessel that you've been traveling on for, you know, through life, and this other one of like kind of wandering through the desert, and how sort of both of these in a sense are like this stripping away of the old. And, you know, like what we talked about, gives you new perspective having gone through something like this, and allowing it to change you and kind of reform you into something hopefully, you know, better, and instead of choosing that sort of easy button. So yeah, I think there's some good analogies through like wandering through the desert in our journey.
No doubt. If you were to kind of boil all that we've talked about down to your top 1 or top 3 biggest takeaways from the last several years of losing a child, well, let's just say getting married, getting pregnant, losing a child, you know, moving on from one career to a completely different one, having another child, you know, what would you say if you could encompass some of the bigger life lessons that are really so priceless? What are you so grateful to have come out of this having garnered?
I would say one of the biggest things for me is, and this goes against everything inside of me, and my, like what I want to do is like that piece of don't do it alone. You just can't. Like if you isolate yourself, that's just a dangerous path. And like sharing this, you know, beautiful season with my wife of getting married and enjoying our married life and then starting our family. Yeah, it's painful, but really, you know, doing it with somebody else, and then also this community we have is, I mean, invaluable. Even just having like one good close friend is like so important, who is willing to have a deeper relationship, to just share and dive in and ask the hard questions, and that I think has been invaluable for me.
Really cool. And the same thing that you said too, I resonated with about how just the way that you gauge the importance that we place on things completely shifted as a result of this. I've had my own challenges, and you know, when you talk about, for me, I was thinking about like personal bankruptcy, you know, or you know, failing at my business, you know, all of it was like compared to losses of family members, you know. It doesn't really compare, you know. So ding my credit. Okay, you know, like there's so much more important things in life than that, you know. And I think, to your point, it comes back to really being clear of what your values are in life, you know, your faith, your family, love, your just connection to enjoying the moment and letting go of all the things that are really out of your control anyways, you know. But we spend so much time focusing on likes and engagement on social media and, you know, so many things that really don't mean anything.
We're 10 steps ahead and not living, trying to be present.
Right. Really cool. Well, thank you for sharing your story with me, with those that'll listen and watch this. I really appreciate it, because that what you've been through is, again, something like you said, but I would say too that you would not wish upon your worst enemy, and yet it is part of that circle of life. And to have the ability to come through this not only you know, stronger, healthier in many different ways, more compassionate, more empathetic, being able to love deeper, all those things that come as a result of going through pain. It's really, really cool to see, and it's inspiring. So thank you.
You bet.
I would say too, I think it's, you look at pain versus suffering. Pain is, you can't avoid it, you know? The suffering is when you just, when you attempt to control things that are out of your control and you make it all about you, you know? And I think one of those things that I have learned and that I also teach to other people is that to get out of suffering, you have to focus on something greater than yourself. Suffering is just a massive obsession with yourself and your current condition. And to ask for help, to give, or to, you know, push yourself out of this monofocused, you know, experience will help the healing process for anyone that might be going through a grieving, you know, time in their life.
Yeah.
So.
And we're always happy to connect with people who are on a similar journey or have a diagnosis or have had infant loss.
Cool.
Yeah, I think there's a unique connection, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
When two people go through something very similar,
yeah,
can have sort
absolutely.
of a bond.
If people did want, I mean, that's really sweet to offer. If people were to want to connect with you, or even if they lived in Denver, Colorado, and wanted to work with you, how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I think on our website, if they go there, we've got an email. You know, our website's geared towards the woodworking piece, but it's got a little bit of our story, and
cool.
I think there's an email where you can reach out to us that way.
Cool. What's your website?
TheAndersCollective.com.
Okay. TheAndersCollective.com.
Yep.
Cool.
And I think the other thing is my wife has written this beautiful blog and kept a log of all these entries, and she does a wonderful job beautifully kind of extracting all the feelings and the wrestling and the hard and the good and the beauty and the sad through all of it. So if people want to read that, I'm happy to point them towards that as well.
Cool.
On a little bit more intimate level.
Cool. I'll put that all in the show notes and things like that. So anyways, thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks, Johnny.
Boom.